first of all, just so you know, the general theme of their curriculum is that sex is dirty and only outside of marriage. It's dirty, it's gross, it's disgusting. But the second you get married, it's just going to be totally great. That's, as if that works. But the whole point is, essentially the message is, if you have sex before marriage, you're basically guaranteed to get an STD, or an unintended pregnancy. But that is the entire purpose, is scare you about, it's gross, it's yucky, it's dirty, it's shameful, without talking about how you could effectively greatly minimize those risks, of course, with condoms and birth control. They don't talk about that. And when they do talk, but they do mention condoms and birth control at the high school level. And it's to say how ineffective they are. So they're telling kids that condoms and birth control, other birth control options are not very effective. And they actually tell kids that condoms may cause irritation and that they can be very uncomfortable. So they literally tell kids that. So this is because of their religious morality viewpoint, that they are willing to risk the health of students in public schools. So that's more important to them, to say that it's bad, because they just can't say that it's okay because they're against it. So here's from the curriculum. This is a quote from one of their slides. They say, sex will create a mental and physical bond that will prohibit and impede your ability to move on. Okay, there's no citation for that, just so you know. So they tell kids, sex will, it definitely will create a mental and physical bond that will prohibit and impede your ability to move on. So I want to know, where's the proof that it will impede your ability to move on? There's no citation for that. And just think of how harmful that is, and how much that shames kids' normal sexuality and their personal, private sexual choices, and stigmatizes all of it. It's not based in reality. They're stating it as though it's fact. Another problem that I saw in their curriculum is they list the Archdiocese of St. Louis as a citation. It's a source that they cite. Really. So they tell kids that other than abstinence, the most effective form of birth control is the natural family planning method, or the rhythm method. So you're all familiar with that. So just not using any hormonal birth control or any condoms, but planning out your ovulation as a female, just natural. It's what the Lord wants. They don't say Lord, they don't say that part, but they say that is the most effective form of birth control, other than abstinence. And there's no scientific basis for that. It's not true. It is harmful to tell kids that, because then they're not going to use condoms and birth control when they have sex. This is bad. This is dangerous. But that's literally their citation listed, is the Archdiocese of St. Louis for that statement. Okay, so let me tell you about the yucky water Cheez-It activity. A couple of you know about this. Oh, it's the worst. So, and that's what they call it. Okay, they call it the yucky water Cheez-It activity. They use the word yucky. That is Thrive's word. So here's what that activity is. Okay, there are 2 cups of water. And the Thrive Best Choice presenter gives the entire class Cheez-It crackers to chew. And so they leave the 1 cup of water alone. But then the other cup of water they give to the first kid. The first kid chews up their Cheez-Its and spits them into the cup of water. And then they pass the cup back to the next kid, and they do the same, spits out the Cheez-Its, and then they each do that. So that represents, having sex with someone one each time. You're spitting out your cheeses. So at the end of it, the Thrive Best Choice presenter says, which cup would you rather drink out of? You know, and of course, the kids want the pure, clean, untouched cup of water, and not that yucky water, the dirty, gross water. So that's your body. If you have sex, you're just a cup of water with nasty, chewed up, spit out cheeses in it. And that's what they're telling kids. There's no conversation there about safety, about protection at all. It's just that that's you if you have sex. You're yucky, you're gross. The sexual exposure chart, they have this chart, they talk about exposure a lot, that the number of sexual partners that you have is very important. They focus a lot on that number of sexual partners you have, that the more you're exposed to means like, the more, it's just, it's gross, the number you're exposed to, and it's like, that's more of a risk that you have. But there's no citation for that, because I think we all know the number is not really what's important, is it? It's the safety. It's that you're having the safest, most protected sex. It's not the number of partners, but and they have no citation for that sexual exposure chart and for what they tell kids. It's based in their religious morality. They have another slide where they say the reason the danger zone starts with making out is because this is the place where some might become sexually aroused. For some at this point, it is hard to pull back or slow down. They are telling kids that there's a danger zone where if you're making out with someone, you gotta be really careful because it's gonna be really hard for this other person to pull back or slow down. That's rape culture. That's victim blaming. They are saying, we all know that gender, what they're talking about. They're saying for boys, he's not going to be able to slow down, so watch out, girls, come on now. It's the excuse and the defense that is very commonly used for rape. And this is the thing, is that this entire curriculum never once mentions the word consent. Never once. And it's so dangerous because we want kids to know that they have autonomy over their own bodies. They are always in control. They don't have to ever give consent if they don't want to, if they're not comfortable with it. They are always in control of their bodies. If someone else doesn't give consent, they always must stop. They never have the right to do something to someone else without consent, and you don't never have to do anything with anyone else. And you don't have to give your consent if you don't want to. But so Thrive does not ever talk about that in their best choice curriculum, and rather the opposite. They're taking it away. It's very dangerous. We need to empower kids, and that's how we do it, is by talking about consent, and that they make the choice for when they want to have sex. They make that choice. Thrive doesn't get to make the choice for when the best time is for them to have sex. No adult makes that choice for their kid. That's what we need to be talking about, is we want kids to be making informed decisions. We want them, not only are they going to give consent one day when they choose to have sex, we want it to be informed consent. And that is how they make the most responsible choices. So no one else can make those choices for anyone else. So we're taking that autonomy away from kids with these abstinence-only lessons, and it's very dangerous. There are also slides where they shame kids that are born to teenage parents, and they shame kids who may have unintended pregnancies. It doesn't help anything. It's, again, not talking about condoms and birth control and how to prevent unintended pregnancies. But they have statistics, and they say, if you're children of teenage mothers are more likely to drop out of high school, and they're more likely to end up in prison. And just imagine if you're a kid whose parent had you as a teenager, how would that make you feel? And then they say that teenage mothers themselves are more likely to drop out of high school, and just more shaming. And then a bunch of medically inaccurate stuff. They have a slide where they say nothing should be entering a man's penis sometimes for STI testing, they have to stick a cotton swab in your urethra. Okay, number one, it turns out that actually nowadays for STI testing for men, they do not have to stick a cotton swab in your urethra. They do it through a urine sample. I have a doctor friend who was talking to me about this, and she read this curriculum and she was like so mad about it. So that's actually not true anymore, and if doctors had actually written this, they wouldn't have written that. No, that's not how it is. Another thing that we need to understand, so they're telling kids that that is what STI testing is, and that if you're a boy, they're gonna stick a cotton swab up your penis and it's horrible. So just imagine if you are a boy and you had unprotected sex and you think you might have an STI, or they're discouraging you from going to get tested. They're saying you should be scared of getting tested for an STI. It's just horrible. It's horrible. It's a public health crisis to teach this curriculum. Not based in medical science. It's just horrible. And it shames boys that might need a catheter, right? Like they say nothing should be entering a man's penis. And sometimes if you use a catheter, it would be entering your penis. But they just say it like as if that's fact. That should never happen. It's horrible. They have another slide that says the vagina is used for 3 purposes. And I'm about to tell you what those 3 are, but the vagina is used for. I don't use it. It just gets used, apparently. According to Thrive Best Choice. The vagina is used for 3 purposes. Sexual intercourse, menstruation, and the birth canal for the baby. Oh, wow. Masturbation is not listed there. So apparently that's just not a purpose for the vagina. I thought those were their only 3 purposes. They also then say, during vaginal intercourse with a male, the penis enters the female's vagina and releases semen, increasing the risk to contract an STI, because sex equals STI. And then they say males have a closed reproductive system. So do you notice how heteronormative that is? Sex is only penis-vagina sex to them. They act as though, they act as though the LGBT community doesn't exist, completely left out of the equation. That's very harmful to LGBT students. They need to be recognized. They exist. Whether fundamentalists like it or not, they exist. Isn't it sad that just say, they exist, that's a radical statement? I mean, but we just have to include them in this conversation about sex. They're going to have sex too. And they just need to be recognized and be included in this conversation. So not only is it heteronormative and anti-gay students, but also they have a lot of gender stereotypes that are very harmful as well. They show kids a comedy sketch for some reason by a Christian comedian named Tim Hawkins. I don't know if anybody's familiar with him. Apparently he's local. He's from St. Charles. Anyway, so they show this little comedy bit about how he's saying that boys are naturally violent and aggressive toward girls, but girls are graceful. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And it has nothing to do with sex ed, but they're showing this to kids. The point, they claim that they just show it as that they don't take it seriously, but they show it to kids as a commentary on what some people think about gender. But in that context of young, developing kids, they don't get that it's just a joke. And the entire purpose is, it's like that whole boys will be boys mentality. Like, boys are violent to girls, boys are aggressive, and it's just the way boys are. They cannot control themselves. They cannot control their aggression and their violence. And it goes back to what I was saying before with the rape culture. That's in their curriculum. It's ridiculous. It's all about, they call sex a risky behavior. They use the word risky over and over again. Sex equals risk to them. They equate sex to drugs and to drinking. They say you can become addicted, which sexual addiction, by the way, is not actually a diagnosis. It's not in the DSM. Doctors don't diagnose that. But so they're saying because you can become addicted and because it's risky, that's why you should not do it at all. But we all know the evidence is in, and abstinence only doesn't work, and kids are still having sex because they make those choices for themselves. So we are doing a big disservice here, and we need to give them the facts. And this is not actually sex education, because education is unbiased facts. So this is just sex religious morality. It is one narrow view of morality. And we are really harming kids by keeping them ignorant, in the dark about sex, about their bodies, about sexuality, and teaching them that it is gross and shameful. This is psychologically damaging, but it's also a physical risk. It is a health risk. They are more likely to contract STIs and more likely to have unintended pregnancies. And of course, we know this because we value evidence and facts, and we have seen this research studies, and we've seen the evidence. For some reason, though, we know the reason. I mean, it's based on religious morality is where this comes from. So there's no place for that in public education. And I know my time is short, but I just wanted to talk about just a little bit briefly about all of this has gotten me to realize that we need a sex-positive revolution. And so, and some of you may not know the term sex-positive. It's kind of a recent term. But what I mean when I say sex-positive, it's just the general view, the general perspective and attitude that sex is good, sex is healthy, sex is normal, sexuality is also normal, good, healthy. We need to be talking about it, open, honest communication, not withholding the facts. And you know that I mean what I say because my 3 kids are here right now, and so I'm not afraid to talk about sex with my kids. Yeah, they know about sex. It's not scary. They're young, and that doesn't make kids go have sex. Kids will, post-puberty, desire sex. That is normal, to be expected, and it's always been this way. And why do we pretend like it is something bad and shameful and gross? And that is where we really hurt not only others, but I think it comes from us and how we think about it ourselves. So adults have this discomfort with sex and sexuality. It's our personal issues with it and our personal insecurities and just these issues that we haven't worked through and we're not comfortable talking about it ourselves. And because we're not comfortable with it and we have our own issues and baggage that we haven't dealt with, we put that onto other people, and it's the worst when we do that to children, and it's not acceptable. And so when I say sex positive, I mean we all need to be openly talking about this and how sex and sexuality is normal and healthy, and we need to stand up and say so, because there is a very well organized, coordinated effort to promote sex negativity. And it's this puritanical, morality-based, judgmental view of sex, which I clearly just outlined for you. They're actually in our public schools teaching this stuff. And I do have, I have a plug that I have to make. If you want more information about Expose Thrive, so that's, like I said, it started out as a Facebook page, but actually now we are a political action committee. So Expose Thrive, we are fundraising, we need money. I have all of the information about this Thrive Best Choice program in public schools at exposethrive.com. Please go there. If you are generous enough to help us out and make a donation, it would be greatly appreciated. Thrive is a very well-funded machine. They've got that religious right money. They are funded, by the way, by Focus on the Family. They are funded, it's on their tax forms, they're funded by the Knights of Columbus. If you know that local radio station, you see bumper stickers everywhere for Joy FM Christian Radio. They're funded by them. They're funded by Grace Church here in St. Louis, and who knows what else. They have a lot of money, but they're still in 9 school districts in the St. Louis area. And if you know anyone in the St. Charles School District, Fort Zumwalt School District, Lindbergh School District, Bayless School District, Hancock Place, Confluence Academy Charter School, Live for Life Academy Charter School, the Lincoln County School District, and the Winfield School District. I think I just got them all. They still have Thrive Best Choice. We need to maintain pressure on those school district administrators and board members. This is not acceptable. It is not medically accurate. We need a fact-based, science-based. We need unbiased facts being taught to kids, not a religious and political agenda. So exposethrive.com. Please donate. Please help us out. I want to continue advertising and getting this message out there so that people understand the details. Why this is so harmful. Why this is not acceptable in public schools. And we can't do that without money.